let's talk about a strike that we talk about, a general strike that we needed here. We never got it. It doesn't seem like we will get it. I don't see anybody organizing to push us there.
No.
But India has something going on, fam.
Yeah, so India, of course, the farmers, as you know, led this national strike, and they have continued to strike since, I believe, like 10 days ago, over 10 days ago. So the farmer unions in India launched a nationwide shutdown over new agricultural laws that were aimed at liberalizing the industry. The deadlock continues to further talks with the government have been canceled. So people are still striking. Farmers held a one-day nationwide strike on Tuesday after days of blockading the New Delhi in a bid to force the government to repeal its new market-friendly farm laws. And it saw 10,000s of farmers blocking key roads and rail lines across the country, affecting transport services and offices. They received support from railway workers, truck drivers, and other unions who joined them in the strike. This was met with mixed reactions in India, with markets, business, and roads closed in some regions, while some remain unaffected. The farmers said that the strike would be a peaceful protest and would ensure that emergency services like ambulances were still working. So this is important for a multitude of reasons, right? Because what these people are doing, by the way, in what's happening in India is like super leftist communist movement. I mean, they have like the flags, they have everything, right? They took all these sectors of the workforce and they organized together, and they were able to literally even get colleges to participate. So a lot of these colleges began taking part in the strike, and the universities fell right in line. They said the press release by the IMA, the Medical Students Network, said the hunger strike at the NMC office and protests at 4 major places in Delhi. All college branches across India will also be a part of this protest. So they managed to get students to force the universities to be a part of that. That wouldn't happen here because our universities are so profit driven that I just don't, I don't know if I see that in particular happening. But we have just a couple pictures, Johnny, I just wanted to show. There's a few on Twitter. And you can see like how many people are there. You can see 250 million workers and farmers went on strike in India. Of course, like we said, it was the largest strike in human history. Mm-hmm. It's nothing like this has ever been seen. And you can just see more of the pictures on the next one, the vastness of it. And nobody was talking about this, guys. And it was a bunch of socialist trade unions, by the way. Nobody was talking about this in mainstream media. They are not showing it. They're not mentioning it. This largest strike in human history is not being mentioned by mainstream media outlets. The only people who have been talking about it are progressives or independent media. And there's just a bunch of pictures I wanted Johnny to show. So my point is, in comparison to what's happening there, what's happening here is just so sad, Pasta. It's just so sad. What is it? The Congress met today saying that they're not going to shut down. They're going to have an extension, that they're still trying to work out this stimulus, supposed bullshit stimulus that we're going to get. Yeah. Meanwhile, small business owners have been talking about how their life is after these shutdowns, right? And I have these stories that I wanted to share because I'm kind of working on this project that I think it's so important for people to really start maybe understanding the need for direct action, because I see progressives constantly talk about, how they want so-and-so like 2024, right? They want AOC or Nina Turner or whoever it is to save them. And that's not going to work, because as amazing, as wonderful as whoever it is that you might think will change the Democratic Party, they're not going to, because it is a machine. It is part of a machine, and we're not going to be able to do it. So this guy named Eric Bowler, who's 42 years old, is the owner of this Fortune Club and Revelry restaurant in Portland, Oregon. And I just wanted to mention some of these people's stories. He basically had to close down his restaurant early due to COVID-19, and they got the PPP, and they got a little bit of hope, but then it was a 2 months fix. And of course, this pandemic has lasted 8 months.
8 months now, yeah.
And he says, and Johnny, you have the picture here. He says, it's crazy to see the charts of how the rich have gotten so much richer during the pandemic. And then everybody else was kind of left fighting for scraps. And this is like normal people saying this. It's frustrating to see other industries get total bailouts while hospitality places, live music venues, which we're kind of a hybrid of those, were just totally left out. A lot of places are able to reopen with online sales or other ways to do what they do, but we survive on putting people in place to socialize. And I agree that that's not safe right now, but there needs to be some sort of bailout or assistance for places that fall into that category because they're a huge part of the economy. And this is in Portland, Oregon. Then there was this gentleman named Nick Muscari, a fellow Italian, 39, owner of Nick's Sports Grill and Lounge in Texas. And he said, when the governor shut us down for the first time in March, we did the to-go stuff, like a lot of people have been trying to survive. But it was a struggle. We finally got to reopen. Things were pretty good because we had our regulars. I had the PPP loan, and my landlord was working with me on rent. But all of a sudden, the state shut us down again. Everything changed. I was about to have to start to pay full rent, and the PPP money was gone with no timetable set for reopening. It just didn't make financial sense. There's no way I'm going to be able to pay rent, pay the staff, and do it all over. We weren't like a hardcore bar. We were a sports bar. For now, what I need to do is focus on legislation. I'm sorry. Okay, so that was that guy in Texas, and you can see like that it wasn't just the initial shutdown pasta. It was the second wave. One.
The second wave really killed us. Yeah.
The second wave. And we know a lot of restaurant people because we have worked in the restaurant industry. So we feel for a lot of these people. Yep. Daniela Stromberg, who is 55, is the owner of Demai Urban Spa in Brooklyn. So it's not just restaurants. It's nail salons, spas, these retail places. She wants to, she's an entrepreneur, okay, and she wants to focus on legislation because she thinks it shouldn't be left up to a nice landlord or a landlord being nice. Legislation should change because a landlord should not be allowed to find loopholes to mandate a renter to stay in the final months of relief during an extraordinary time such as a pandemic. There should be government protections for that, and there is a bill sitting on the state floor that should have been voted on. The legislation would suspend all payments for small businesses, commercial tenants who were forced to shut down their business, and certain mortgage payments for landlords for 90 days in response to COVID-19. I plan to write postcards and make phone calls. And this is the last part that I want to point out that she says, we are sort of past the two-party system. And there's a global united group of very, very wealthy people working together and robbing resources from our planet and from the rest of us. And we need these resources to stay healthy. This never had to happen. Small businesses could have been saved. Guys, like, this is ordinary people with small businesses. This isn't us. You could take what you said and put it into what we said. We constantly talk about all the time. Right. Like, this is there is a group of wealthy people that are literally using the pandemic to literally amass wealth. And that is a fact. That is not, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to really see that. And most of the money has gone to the top. And the Washington Post shows this. According to the Washington Post, more than half of the money from the Treasury Department's coronavirus emergency fund for small businesses went to just 5% of the recipients. And this is according to data on more than 5 million loans that was released by the government this past Tuesday evening in response to the Freedom of Information Act request and lawsuit. And according to the data, the government's Paycheck Protection Program, or the PPP, about 600 mostly large companies, including dozens of national chains, received the maximum amount. So, and that was in comparison to the smaller
Tom Brady
companies.
got some money, right?
Tom Brady got some money. And new data shows, like I said, that more than half of the $522 billion in the same time frame went to bigger businesses, and only 28% of the money was distributed in amounts less than $150,000. So the smaller the businesses were, the less money they got, when it should be the other way around. If you're making sense, and you can see the graph here. Most PPP money went to the fraction of the recipients. The top 1% of loans account for more than a quarter of all of the loan value. So there you go. You guys can see the graph, and then the bottom 1% of loans right there.
Well, that's because they're loans, you know.
Yeah, but at
The small businesses aren't going to be able to pay that big loan.
But they're supposed to be forgivable.
But yeah, that's the thing. They shouldn't be loans. It should be grants.
Be loans.
They should be full-on grants.
Right,
because and it's one thing, we gave them PPP. People talk about getting their PPP and they said they were fine when they got it. But that was a 2-month thing. We're talking about this pandemic has lasted over a fucking year.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to last over a year. Like we're getting to almost January now. And people have received one $1,200 check and these people have received one PPP loan. That is impossible to survive on, no matter how great and popular your restaurant is, especially if you can't have people going to it anymore. And the worst,
system is so fucked up.
It's so fucked.
So screwed up.
Nobody's talking about these small businesses. That's the thing.
We've seen some stuff. We'd even put add in the Pineapple Saloon. Was a famous thing, and then she builds a makeshift dining room outside, and they tell her no dining outside, but then they let a big movie company come right next to her because they had the big money and it's
Newsom's friends. We talked about it yesterday.
Friends. They get all the money. They get all the kickbacks. I mean, seriously, this is disgusting. And we've said this. Well, listen, we've had the arguments about, okay, this coronavirus has only killed less than 1% of the people it's infected. Okay. But it's had a lot of bad effects or whatnot and everything like that. And we said, okay, regardless, the thing is, you can't shut down businesses unless you give them an economic solution. Period. You can't do that. You cannot. We live in the United States of America. Unless you want to scrap the whole monetary system, start with something new. Fine. Okay. But you're not going to do that. I know that, of course, I know you're going to throw that in there.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to do that, which did not happen, then you can't leave all these people, I mean, look at the suicide rate. It's going crazy. I mean, these people don't know what to do. I have bosses, my old bosses, that are just like, they're crying because they don't know what to do. They got a little bit of a PPP loan. It said it might have lasted them 2.5 months tops, but it's been 8 months. And every single time they make those adjustments where we get all plasticware, we get all throwaway stuff, we get all gloves, we got all these things that we need to do, and then we're ready to rock and roll, and you shut us down again? For what? So people can, like Jeff Bezos, can get all the money? And it funnels where? All that. So now you got to go through those entities and you can't go to the little guy anymore?
So the worst part is, too, Pasta, that along with that, of course, what has actually gotten a lot of money are the Uber apps, right? Like the apps, not the people working for the apps. The workers, not so much. So these apps are booming, right? But the workers are often struggling. Delivery drivers have been essential to feeding New York while boosting sales for companies like DoorDash and Uber. But they say work conditions have gotten worse. So instead of like things going better for them, it's gotten a lot worse. They said hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers out of work and the city's unemployment rate at 13.2%. Many desperate people have turned to working for food delivery apps like DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub, which have seen huge demand from customers who are working from home. But again, these people haven't had anything of the gains. It all goes to the top, the corporate owners of the app. It doesn't go to that.
They get all the money.
And also, just to point out, when somebody orders like a Grubhub order or a DoorDash, right, the restaurant person gets charged a fee, so the restaurant person the restaurant worker, like business owner themselves, ends up losing money, and that fee is charged to the customer because you get charged a fee when you're ordering from them, and the workers, the delivery workers, don't get that money. So this is why it's like, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you should encourage people to actually go and pick it up. And it's so easy. I mean, I like using it, especially during the pandemic. It's been so easy, but it's like, you have to think too, like, who is this helping? It's not helping.
Just think about an Uber Eats driver. How many people he's now got to come in contact a day?
Yeah.
He's got to put himself at risk to do that. See, I would have hoped that the government would have went to these companies and said, listen, we're going to give you money. We're going to give your app a lot of money, but you have to make an agreement that you're going to increase the salary of your drivers and of the people working for you so they get a piece of the cheese.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Find a way to say, listen, we'll give you the money, but we got to make sure that these drivers, because now you're going to have a lot more delivery going out there, right? Let's get the money into the hands of those people right now so they have a little, foundation to build upon. And also, too, remember when this started? When the first loans came out, when you got to $1,200 and you got the extra 600, I think, on the, was it 600 or 400? It was an extra 600 and stuff. Everybody was like, oh, well, you know, we heard people in Congress, the grumblings, well, now they're making more than they made before the pandemic, whatnot and stuff. Yeah, but that was turned off very quickly. After 2 months, the faucet was turned out, and we needed that money that we were putting in the bank to eventually move forward once this thing ends. And now the fact that they only did that for 2 months, and it's been 8 months, everybody's running out of money.
And they're shutting down again. So that's the thing. This is a third shutdown now that a lot of places are doing. It's a third shutdown. And that's part of it, too. It's like, first of all, by the way, $600 a week comes out to $15 an hour. That tells you that the vast majority of Americans haven't been getting a living wage for the vast majority of this time. The vast majority of Americans have not been getting a living fucking wage. $15 an hour is what $600 a week equals. So if you're complaining that people got that much, well, maybe, hey, that's showing you that this country's economy has been screwed for fucking far longer than the COVID. And when the pandemic came, it just exacerbated what was already there, what was already failing in our economy. That's what happened, because $15 an hour in California is not much at all. Yeah. It's absolutely barely enough to actually get by.
And most of the people got an extra, like, what, $250 or something, which is nothing. I mean, but what is it going to do, fam? Even if it is, let's say they amounted out, like, you got somebody who got like $20 an hour, right? Okay. So now you get that money. Are things going back to normal when we open up? I mean, like the restaurant businesses, like for all those waiters and bartenders and people working in hospitality, you know, I mean, they're not going back to normal.
No.
So what are you doing? All you're doing is giving them a little breathing room to try and readjust, to try and find something when God knows if this thing ever ends. We might get a fourth. I think they want to keep us home, period, from now. They keep on just going to keep on saying it. You know, they're going to say the coronavirus again, and then it's going to last into now with Biden, 100-day mask mandate, complete shutdown. Forget about it.
And we haven't even begun talking about the evictions.
Well, there's a tsunami, and I'm not talking about the guy on the ones and twos. I'm talking about the tsunami of these evictions, fam.
Yeah, so they will end. The eviction protections will end on December 31st, okay? And 19 million people are going to be at risk. So this is happening, and people are trying to find ways to go around this, or trying to find ways to stop. You know, the here in LA, it's worse because the LA Sheriff's Department is in charge of evicting people. So we already have tensions with the LA Sheriff Department, okay? And it's only going to get that much worse. I wanted to point out, so what happens when people are evicted from their homes? Well, they literally become homeless, right? This journalist went and started interviewing people who were evicted, and he said, "Tell me, what's the most difficult thing about not having a home?" And they said, "Worrying about, am I going to catch COVID, for one, and also waking up in the morning and realizing I'm not in my room and that I have to ride around all day to find places to go to shelter." So the journalist asked them, "Everything you got in the world is in that car, is that right?" And she says, "Yeah, everything that we have. And then we have like some of our stuff in storage, which is what some people do, and that also costs money, monthly storage. But yeah, basically our life is in our vehicle." And he says, "What are you going to do when it starts getting cold?" "I don't know. It was cold last night." And her name is Margaret, and you can see her name is Margaret Edie. You can see her and her husband are living in their car because they're evicted. In LA, you can't even park in a lot of places if you have a car, because they're going to give you a ticket, and if you get enough tickets, they'll tow your car. Or they'll take your car. Johnny and I went to Echo Park, and we interviewed a guy who they took his car just for being there. Yeah. And that was a heartbreaking story. And like his, there are millions and millions of people. And Jennifer Pearson, who is separated, is another person this journalist interviewed, and she lives in a house with her 3 children. Last March, she lost her job working at a fast food restaurant, and since the summer, she works part-time as a cashier in a grocery store, and she gets paid roughly $225 a week. Her monthly rent is $1,050, pretty cheap rent by comparison to a lot of people. And she said, so the journalist said, Kapopel said, "So even if you handed over your entire paycheck, that wouldn't even cover your rent for a month." And she said, "Not all the way, no. And that's why I'm looking for a second job." And yeah, so they're in theory still protected by the eviction order, but I mean, like I said, that's only going to last so long.
It's gonna run out.
It's going to absolutely run out. And here's another woman named Winnie Dickerson. She's, by most definitions, a good tenant. She and her family lived in the same townhouse for 13 years. She's a college graduate going for a master's degree. She worked as a drug counselor, earning $50,000 a year until that facility closed because of COVID. And for the first time, she said she faced eviction. And she said, I've also worked for the past 15 years with the homeless activity center down in Harrisonburg. So the thought of being homeless and being in the line of the people that I had been serving, it was overwhelming. She has also multiple sclerosis, and her immune system is compromised, so she's got the double whammy. And she said, I think what's missing out of America right now is compassion for our brother. We are our brother's keeper. We bailed out Wall Street. We bailed out the airline industry because of COVID. What about giving this money to landlords to help the tenant so they don't have to pay back the money? Because this is, too, landlords, small landlords are also getting screwed. I'm not talking about the slumlords. I'm talking about like the ones that own one property or two or a small, they have to pay the bank. So they get in trouble too with the bank when people don't pay their rent.
You're talking about like there's a lot of families out there that have another house that they use that rent of that house to help pay their bills and their mortgage of their main house that they're living in. It's not like they're just like a slumlord living with these people, and that does suck in these situations. And these are the arguments what we have when people go, oh, communism, it's awful, they attack communism, and I know they're like looking at it more of like a cynical freaking like one rule totalitarian authoritarian kind of look and stuff like that. But when you talk about the old school days when you had millions of card carrying communists in the United States, they were just about workers' rights. This has to be figured out. Like, if you don't want to call it communism, you want to call it something else, fine. Workers need to be paid. Workers need to have rights. It's not right that my grandfather 60 years ago was able to sweep the docks, and by sweeping the docks he made enough money to buy a house, go away 2 weeks every year on vacation, send 4 kids to college, and die comfortably in a hotel, in a hospital, and now if you have that same job, more than likely you are homeless. So we have to figure this out. We have to figure it out in a way where even the people who are doing the lowest jobs on the spectrum make enough money to have a decent standard of life. That's what it's all about. And, I know people fight against it, and there's a lot of older people, I fight with some family members who are like, well, people got to stop being so lazy. It's like, no, it's not about them being lazy.
The woman's
it's about
getting
the
a
work
second job.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the thing.
The work is not working, it's not paying enough. And we have to figure this out. We have to figure this out as Americans. How are we going to do this for the future? Because if we don't, we're going to end up, and right now, coming out of this crisis, I don't know what's going to happen.
It's awful. Like, I don't think I don't think anybody has painted to you just how awful this is going to get. And what are people doing, right? The government isn't helping them. So like Johnny and I saw in Echo Park, people are taking matters into their own hands. They're building their own communities of homelessness. But apart from that, people are having fundraisers. They're having GoFundMes. So there's a fundraiser that was launched for struggling Metro Detroit restaurant workers. And of course, because Michigan also extended the dining pause through the rest of at least December 20th. And of course, the stimulus negotiations are moving slowly. Thousands of laid off restaurant employers are heading into the holiday season without work or help from the government. So in some communities are stepping up, because what else are you going to do? And this person said it's really heartbreaking hearing every day the basic needs that people aren't able to have because we're in COVID. This is Desiree Vincent Levy, co-founder and executive director of Detroit Kitchen Terminal, a 501c3. She started in 2019 with She-Wolf chef owner Anthony Lombardo. Basically, she modeled it after the DC Central Kitchen in DC. And its purpose was to provide food service training to formerly incarcerated Detroiters, as well as educational workshops for the public, which is awesome because these people have a hard time finding a job. But now with COVID, she's turned it into an organization to provide a one-stop place for donations and disbursements for struggling restaurant workers within the city limits. And she said, understanding and supporting the plight of workers has always been paramount in my life. And, I'm not actively trying to keep my restaurant alive in COVID right now. So having the space and capacity to be on the perimeter and support is important. I mean, this is what people are doing to kind of help the people in the service industry, because remember, these people don't have unions, right? They don't, most of them. There's a few that do. If you work at the airport, a lot of those places are unionized, but most of them don't have unions. Most of them don't have health insurance. And so what are they doing? Well, this guy is a celebrity chef. His name is David Chang, and he went on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he won money for his restaurant workers. So for restaurant workers in general. And he went on the show and he was able to win $1 million and to give it to them. So it's to me, this is nice and all, but it's shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't have to have people going on game shows and winning $1 million to give to the freaking restaurant workers. We shouldn't have to have a woman go from helping, incarcerated people find work to having to help every restaurant worker because they're not getting any help from anybody right now. It shouldn't be on her. It shouldn't be on us. The government should be providing people for closing shit down. Because this killed less than 1% of people. Are you kidding me? And we experienced COVID. We just got done telling you that it's not like a joke. It's a real virus. But is it necessary to shut everything down and put people out of work if you're not going to fucking provide them the means to feed themselves, to pay their rent? Rent shouldn't be an issue. Rent should be halted. Those landlords should get their money from the government. We bailed out. We can bail them out. We bailed out Wall Street, we bailed out the airlines, we bailed out corporations, but we can't bail out the people. I mean, that to me is just beyond sad, fam.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to the, do we have more stuff on this topic and I'll get to it after or no?
No, you can say thank you. We do.
I just want to say thank you real quick to some of the people on the YouTube for hanging on out. And there's a couple super chats on the Rokfin, Super Rays. Kathy Looney, I'm matching Noah. Love you guys. And Noah started it off. Yes, he did. He put a heart and a couch by his Super Ray. Super Ray. Thank you so much. And let me tell you something. Cryptocurrencies. If you do have a few bucks to grab a few, you better, because who knows what's going to happen to our dollar.
Yeah, we don't know.
This thing is really, really scary, and there's a lot more to be continued is all I can say what's going to happen, because I have no clue what's going to happen come February. I'm just like, what's going to happen in February when all these people are thrown out of their houses and they're on the streets and they don't have a lot of jobs to go to or to do shit jobs that won't pay them anything but still live in their car.
So I there's a lot of people out there that just want to focus on electoral politics, right? Like I said, they want to focus on, who's the next progressive we're going to run in the Democratic Party. And then they want to focus on, let's see who's going to save us in 2024 without fixing our elections, without fixing the fact that we can't even talk about election fraud and a certain somebody in the same sentence on YouTube, without understanding that these things are essential to actually getting anything we want, and without understanding direct actions. So I want to know what we can learn from India and how we can implement this into our own structure, because there are a lot of people that are becoming not necessarily political, but that are being forced to talk about, hey, I'm a small business owner, I'm losing everything I have, or hey, I'm a server, I can't afford this, I haven't had money. People have begun sending me their stories because I want to know, if you're a restaurant worker, I want to know how you have gone through this experience and how it's affected you. And if I can guess, it's not been very good. So my idea is that people need to organize, right? Because we see that it's possible. I'm not expecting 2 million people here, but I am saying that it is absolutely possible through direct actions and through demanding that these people do it, because they're not going to give it to you. You can ask nice, you can call them nice, leave nice messages. That's not going to do anything. You need to make these people uncomfortable. So in my opinion, retail, right? The retail industry, the hospitality workers, the waiters, the bussers, the cooks, front of the line, back of the house, all these people, small business owners, all of them should organize to protest and occupy the mayor's house, the mayor's office, their local Congress members' houses and office, and the governor. Gavin Newsom would get a hell of a lot of flack if everybody came together and organized to demand not just a stimulus, but also PPP money for a lot of these businesses that have completely been left out, and healthcare protections, because a lot of these people, like I said, are working and they have no healthcare. So if they get sick, what do? Let's say somebody gets sick and they are worse off than we are. Let's say they develop pneumonia and they have to go to the hospital. Well, they don't have insurance. How much is that going to cost them? That's not fair. It's a pandemic. You should have their back. And going along with this, of course, we talked about the Uber drivers. We talked about the Lyft drivers, the Uber Eats, the apps, this gig economy that has been forced upon us because of neoliberalism. These people should also be part of this organization to demand more income and protections from these apps and the government, right? But from these apps, these big CEOs that are making so much money on their behalf, okay? And they're making like millions of dollars, and these people are getting none of it. They're getting no health insurance protections. They're getting nothing for them to be in any way, shape, or form have any sort of social safety nets. And they should demand help for independent contractors and these gig workers, because these people in the sector, it was even difficult for them to get their $1,200 check to begin with. I mean, some of these people haven't been able to get it because they're gig workers. So they're not a typical employer. They're an independent contractor. The third thing the third group of people, right, that I think is important is those who have work but are overworked and underpaid. So this would be like grocery store workers that we've heard, the truck drivers, the people that work at like retail, the pharmacy, Amazon, and also like non-app delivery workers, whether it's UPS and all these people, nurses who are the lower rung of the medical field, but they do some of the hardest work, EMTs, and some teachers who might be substitute teachers or not getting the same salary that they were getting before. This tier of workers is important also for them to participate in this whatever you guys want to call it. I'm brainstorming here, but this is absolutely possible, and the key is to get people from all sectors, because every single person that's a working person is affected by this. And then we have the fourth sector as a group, which would focus on the evicted folks. So it could be anybody from a business eviction, because that is happening as well, like we said, or your place of residency, including the renters, homeowners too, small landlords, salon owners, etc. These folks are also losing their livelihood and need not just worker PPP, but also rent cancellation and debt forgiveness, because even if their rent is canceled for now, they're going to have to pay it back later. That's going to be an impossibility with the upcoming situations. And then the fifth group consists of artists. And I always look to artists because, we come from the entertainment world, and a lot of these people who worked as part-time gig economy servers, etc., are actors, musicians, models, performers, comedians. Comedians can't perform right now. If Jimmy Dore didn't have his show, if Graham didn't have his show, if Ron didn't have his show, they would be screwed because they were performing, they were touring and stuff. That is a chunk of money that they're not able to do, these independent artists and musicians as well. And they also need help because this is part of the gig economy, and they can join these demands and this struggle. And then the sixth group, in my opinion, would just consist of people who are supportive, whether it's college students, journalists, social media influencers, or just general supporters who are not necessarily included in this sector, who may still have a job, who may be fine, but simply want to support and amplify the message and stories of those struggling. And this is important because I think that this is absolutely possible if people get off their ass and start talking to each other and understanding that this goes beyond politics and ideology. You're going to see a Republican going after Gavin Newsom just as much as you're going to see a Democrat now, because of how he's operated and how he's screwed the economy here in LA and small businesses. I know because I have a lot of friends here who tend to be on the liberal side and who are out there complaining how they're not able to work, and why the hell are they being closed, and why is Gavin Newsom doing this? I have never seen these people criticize anything political, and now I'm seeing it. This is why I think the time is ripe to do something like that. And when people simply just want to focus on electoralism, that's not going to get you anywhere fast enough. This is the only way to do it, whether it's a sit-in, and it has to be an occupation more than just a protest. It has to be like literally occupying these spaces, demanding this from the government, and it should basically be like a stimulus and healthcare and whatever, and just a UBI actually until the pandemic ends, right? Or you strike. That should be it. And you can shut down the economy by doing this, by getting every sector involved. Kind of a bigger version of what happened in Portland when it was against police brutality. That same thing, but for economic issues. And that's what I was wanting to see. And now with Biden's election, it seems like all the protests have died down, a lot of them. And this is what people need to be protesting for. And so what I want from people is, if you're in the restaurant industry or a small business owner, a server, bartender, cook, if you're a nail salon person, if you're somebody that's in beauty, retail, anything like that, and you've been devastated by the corona shutdown, I want to hear from you, because I'm working on this project to give a voice to the people who are hurting, because not enough people are talking about this. There's sporadic stories, but not enough people are pretty much putting the spotlight on what is happening, because this is really bad and it's only going to get worse, you guys. So I want to hear from these people who have been completely just shut off and don't have money coming in. How the hell are you surviving? I want to know, and I want to amplify your story, because I think people need to know, because people respond better sometimes to stories real from the heart that are told, and not just to facts. Unfortunately, that's the nature of humanity. That's how we respond. So I think it's important to highlight these issues.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. I'd like to see, something what's...
Brandon Bernard became the 9th person.
There he is. We'll get to him right next, but I'd like to see something what happened when India kind of emulate over here. Really, to tell you the truth, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And this is something that Bernie Sanders was ripe for, would be a general strike, at that time. It's just a shame.
Yeah.
And like, Fiorella said, you can't rely on any type of politician to come save you. We have to save ourselves. And right now, we could shut it down. We could shut it down if we wanted to. Hey, Amazon, we're not going to deliver your products anymore. We're not going to work in your factories anymore. Hey, grocery stores, we're going to shut it down. And it might seem really like, oh my God, how can you do that to grocery stores when people have to get everything? If we shut it down for a couple days, we occupy their locations. It's different when they open up their window and they see thousands of people out in front of their houses. They'll get in line like that. Just thinking about what that crowd could do to them. And that's what has to be done. We can no longer sit back and rely on anybody else to help us and save us anymore. If we don't save ourselves, we're done, ladies and gentlemen.
We have to save ourselves, and that's the thing. You're right. Nobody is going to save us. And along with this stuff that I pointed out, obviously, when you shut things down, you have to have mutual aid, right? So there would have to be organizing conversations, having for, oh, well, you're going to shut down grocery stores. How am I going to get food? Well, we're going to provide the food. And people are already providing food through food banks and stuff. So that's where you get in the food banks and you get them to participate. Okay, well, so we're only going to have food delivered to people for now. And that's how we're going to be able to survive this, because people got to eat, right? People have to eat. So you have to, that's called mutual aid. And that's just basically people helping each other out to do this. And this is just one idea, but this is what's got to happen, you guys, because again, nobody's going to fucking save you. They're already right now today, they decided that they were going to extend their session because they can't come up with a stimulus, and Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell are doing their whole theatrics together, and nothing is getting done for the people. Something's got to get done. Something's got to give. The way to do things is to actually have direct action. People, like, I got in an argument on a Facebook post regarding the Nina Turner thing, saying, you guys keep putting all this effort into the Democratic Party when we can have our best organizers literally organizing outside, demanding and better elections, demanding free free speech, demanding, these things that are important, plus healthcare, plus a UBI, plus whatever it is you want to demand with social safety nets, right? But like, it doesn't happen because people are just so focused on voting for somebody or somebody saving them. And it's like, I got attacked, and with the same attack that Jimmy Dore often gets too. It's like, oh, you don't have any solutions. You're just angry. It's like, well, I'm angry, and I'm rightfully angry because we should all be fucking angry. We've gotten one fucking check. What the hell? What is wrong with you? Like, if you're not angry, you're obviously living in an alternate reality. And I have countless times said that the solution is direct action. The solution isn't just waiting and doing things a slow electoral way. In order to push electoral change, you need to force these people to do it.
Exactly. You force them to do it. You show up and you say, no, you're not going to suggest anything. You're going to do this. Fuzz the Fair, thank you for the Super Chat contribution, says, what's the activist route to blast our election systems to the Stone Age to overcome the software electronification and inaudible machines? Well, we take that same group that we have thousands of people. We march down to Downey. We march into their buildings and we lay out those boxes. We take out all the things and we hand count. And we go, look what we got. And so we know. I mean, how surprised? Listen, how pissed off would you be if we were able to get a hold of the 2020 primary in Los Angeles and look at all those numbers and count all those ballots and they weren't Joe Biden like they say they were?
Yep.
How pissed off would you be? I mean, we should be getting that as is. We get a 1% audit. We should get 100% audit.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's what we do right now. We have to go back to the old school ways. I mean, we have to smash the machines and we have to hand count.
And the reason I started with this stuff is because people are immediate, like, you know, we focus on elections here, right? But people are the kind of people that are worried about their rent right now. I mean, that's an immediate concern. Their rent, their health care, that's why I start with that. Because once people have that and they're able to accomplish that, they're going to be able to see, oh, you've talked to somebody you don't agree with. Okay, well, hey, let me talk to you about Julian Assange. Oh, hey, let me talk to you about election integrity. Oh, you know what? You know how they screwed us here? They also screwed our election. You want to continue protesting for that? And that's how it gets done too. I'm not saying there's a limit to the things we do, but that what I did, what I said, what I put out there, that is what India did, basically, in their own way, in their own government way, because India has a whole history of caste system, and it's a very complex political situation. But
yeah, I'm wondering what's going on with Modi with this whole situation. I'd like to see how he's reacting to this shit right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because he comes from the poor, so...
he comes from them, but he's also a businessman. And
he is. There's a lot of austerity measures in there. A lot of people have complained about the working conditions, even under him.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
That's, you wouldn't have those millions and millions of people in the street if people loved him. You just like that amount of people.
It ain't no quick fix, and it takes in it needs a sledgehammer fix, and that's what we're talking about. Oh, bam, and let's change this whole goddamn system. Just say enough to the rich elite oligarchs who are controlling everything.
People know this. You guys just heard me read that. Those people, they don't watch the Convo Couch. Those people don't watch like independent media. Those are normal, run-of-the-mill people who have businesses, and they're saying the same shit we're saying. Why? Because at this point, it's just obvious, you guys. It's obvious, and they're ready. We just gotta get them to the point where they're ready to do this. But they're getting there. They're getting there. Sadly, because of how we've handled this, fam.
Yeah.